Hi, my name is John Vanna. Sam, on December 1st of 1997, you were injured while unloading your trailer. Would you describe to our viewers what happened?
Well, I was on the Dollar General account, and I arrived at my first stop about 5 o'clock in the morning. It gave me a couple hours rest time. At 7 o'clock, I started to unload. 45 minutes later, I picked up a box, spun around to put it on my rollers. At that time, I blew out through this. Well, I didn't know I did it the damage. All I know is I was in extreme pain. I crawled over to the side of the trailer and sat up. Well, it didn't work because my body wasn't high enough. My legs weren't stretched out. So I had to climb up on the boxes and to get my legs and my knees level with my hips. It felt a little better. Well, I was still in pain. I finished unloading the truck, took some aspirins, and then climbed into the seat of the truck and went to my next stop. There I finished that one. By the time I'd finished that, I was in so much pain that I could hardly even stand up. It was all about sitting down at that moment.
Was weight a factor in this case? Were the boxes heavy?
No, the boxes weren't heavy. It was just probably the way I'd unloaded.
Sam, prior to this injury, had you ever been injured before?
No, not at all.
Sam, how much pain were you in at the time of the injury?
Extremely a lot of pain. It's hard to describe pain, but it was so much pain that it took me a while to get up off the floor after it happened.
Is there anything you could have done to prevent the injury?
Yeah, probably if I would have positioned my body a little better when I was unloading.
Had you been accustomed to heavy lifting in the past?
Oh, yes, of course.
Give me some examples. What kind of lifting had you done in the past?
Oh, my younger years, I was a roofer. I'd also been a logger.
Okay.
And prior coming to Warner, I was a bed bugger, which is a furniture mover. I did that for 10 years, and I moved a lot of heavy objects.
So you're used to doing heavy moving on a day-to-day basis?
Yes,
your back.
Yes, I was.
Sam, how did this injury affect you physically, and have you fully recovered?
Well, what's fully recovered? I mean, I can't unload trucks anymore. I can still pick up things as long as I pick them up the right way. But it's affected me not only at work, but at home.
Can you give me an example? I mean, now I understand that you can only bend over so far. Can you describe to our viewers how far you could bend?
Well, if you look at being bent over, some people can bend over and pick up a dime off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
I can't bend over. As far as I can bend over is an L shape. If I want to pick something up, I have to squat down and pick it up.
So you have to use your knees to actually get down and get yourself back up again.
Exactly. That's exactly what I have to do.
How did the injury affect you financially?
Well, financially, you're used to making so much a week, and with being at Warner did help me out and everything, take care of me, and I appreciated that. It was just that you're used to bringing in so much money so much, and when it's cut by $100, $200, you really have to tighten up your belt. So it really did hurt.
So you obviously received workers' compensation.
Exactly.
But what you're saying is the workers' compensation did not make up for other lost wages that you would have earned.
Right, exactly.
How long were you actually off work?
Well, from the time that I arrived home, it was December 2nd, and I was back in work with Omaha April 1st. So it was a little over 4 months total.
Sam, how did this affect your family life?
Well, there's all drivers, after you spend time out here, you got to go home and do your honeydews. Well, there's a lot of things I can't do anymore because it requires a lot of use of the back. And I have a 2-year-old grandson at home that he comes over to see Papa, and I was used to just bending down and picking him up. Now I have to actually get down on the floor and squat down and pick him up. And it's kind of, bothersome. It bothers me a lot that I can't just grab him and pick him up and throw him in the air anymore.
Why did you want to be on the video today?
Well, I'd like to help the other drivers, let them know that it doesn't matter what age or how old you are. This can happen to you at any time. All you have to do is pick up the box wrong.
Thanks, Sam.
You're very welcome. I hope I can help.
Now I would like to introduce Guy Shelton, who is a physical therapist with Health South. Guy, you just got through hearing Sam describe his injury and how he obtained his injuries. Can you give our viewers an idea what they can do to prevent injuries such as Sam?
Well, John, first you need to be aware of your base of support. That's how your feet are oriented relative to the load and the task that you have at hand at that time. Second, you want to try to keep whatever load that you're handling as close to your center of gravity as possible. Third, by keeping your toes pointed toward the load, that will help you avoid twisting, which is a very significant stress to the back when you're lifting and moving material. Fourth, if possible, try to break the task into smaller, easier components to handle. And fifth, try to be aware of the unexpected. And that sounds a little bit like an oxymoron, but be aware of those boxes that might be shifting or load that might be heavier than you thought it was, so that you can prevent the unexpected from occurring and suddenly creating an injury. John, the first thing we want to talk about is base of support. I'm going to need your help to demonstrate a couple of points. Just come stand right here, put your feet right close together.
All right.
Your base of support right now is the area that's encompassed by your feet. It's a relatively small base of support. And in this position, it doesn't take much force to knock you off balance in any direction. Now go ahead and widen your base of support a bit. Now in this position, with your feet wide apart, you're in a better position to lift things because you've got better side-to-side stability. However, if you were doing something front to back, like a boxer would be throwing a punch, you don't have much base of support there,
right,
and it's easy to knock you off balance. So depending on the task, stagger your base of support both wide side to side and wide front to back, so that creates a more stable position and therefore requires less work from your low back.
Right.
Okay?
Okay.
The next point that we want to discuss is center of gravity. The center of gravity is the point in your body around which your body mass is balanced. For most individuals, this is at about the level of your belt buckle and deep in the abdomen. So for our purposes in lifting, when we lift a box or an object, having that object as close to the belt buckle as possible is going to be your safest position. For today's demonstration, we're using a box that's empty. It's light. But what we would want to do would be to bring the box to the belt buckle level to be closest to the center of gravity before we carry the box or before we place the box down on the floor. As we put the box on the floor, we need to squat, keep the load near our center of gravity, and then put the load down as best as possible. When we bring in the box up, we pick the box up, bring it up to our center of gravity, and then change our base of support. When we go to place the box down, we're going to come over to the load, and even though this is taller and be very easy just to drop or set the box down this way, it's still going to be best to, with a good base of support, lower the center of gravity to unload the load onto its resting place. The third point that we want to talk about today is the concept of keeping your toes pointed towards the load. By keeping your toes towards the load, you will avoid twisting. And twisting is one of the mechanisms of injury that Sam experienced when he was unloading his trailer. First, let me show you what we don't want you to do. We don't want you to come down, even though you may pick the box up correctly, and then stand and just turn and twist the load over to the receiving point. What we'd rather you do is take the box, and again, when you're squatting down to keep the load near your center of gravity, that's where you're using your legs and knees instead of your back, as you've always heard. So you come down, take the load up, stand, and then adjust your base of support and keep the toes pointed where the load's going, and then you can place the load down on its resting place. The fourth point that we'd like to talk about today is breaking the task into smaller, more easily managed components. For example, if we had unloaded these two boxes off of this edge of the pallet and now had to go for the box that's on the third position, instead of reaching over and just picking the box up and leveraging against our low back, what we would want to do is to establish a good base of support, further support the base of support by leaning into your pallet, and then with that being stable, drag the load towards you. Then readjust your base of support, take the load off of the pallet, and then carry it over to its resting point to finish the movement, breaking that into two tasks. The fifth point of our discussion today is to be aware of awkward and unexpectedly changing loads. This would take into account a load that might shift as you're in the process of moving it, or a load that might be heavier or lighter than you had expected, creating a sudden change in the way your body, and in particular your back, handles the stress. Some of you may have used or seen used before these back belts, some with suspenders, some without, that people use in an attempt to prevent back injuries. My recommendation on those is to not let that be a false sense of security for you. The belts are there to remind you to use the knowledge that you have that where we've talked about today in our video. The belts themselves do not by themselves prevent the injuries. It's a reminder to you. In summary, we've talked today about base of support and needing to have a good adaptable base of support as you lift and carry loads. We've talked about keeping the load near your center of gravity, including squatting, using your stronger leg muscles to protect your back when you're picking up a load from a low position. We've talked about keeping the twisting to a minimum, and the reminder there is to keep your toes pointed to where the load is. We have also today talked about breaking tasks down into more easy, smaller, manageable tasks, and we've talked about being more aware of the awkward and unexpected situations that can sneak up on you and make a back injury occur.